All right, man. So it looks like we got some breaking news here. We got a brand new poll that puts Kamala Harris at a new low in the state of Texas. She's actually now beneath down 3 in the poll in a new poll for the first time. This is also the first head-to-head poll to have her down 3. So we have this Emerson College poll coming out September 3rd through the 5th are the dates that it took place in. It's also a likely voter sample. 845 likely voter sample. The Pollsters Emerson College. The sponsor is The Hill. It is the freshest, newest poll that we have. You can see here. It says Harris 48, Trump 51, Trump plus 3. So this is pretty interesting. You can see there's a surge going on here in terms of the numbers, especially in recent times. But let's take a look at these polls more closer. I think there's some really interesting stuff to be garnered from these numbers. So if we check out this poll, check this out. So what we can see is if we look at the poll here, we can see that in Texas, this poll says Texas, Kamala Harris 46%, Donald Trump 50%, and then other/undecided is 4%. So she's down 4% in this poll, but the reason why she's actually down 3 is because when we actually take into account so-called leaners, people who are undecided in their vote, but they're leaning towards a candidate, she's actually down by less than 3%. So what we can take a look at here is we could take a look and see here what the numbers are. So in the Excel spreadsheet, it says if the presidential election were held today, would you vote for Kamala Harris or Donald Trump? Selected choice, Kamala Harris at 46.1, Donald Trump at 50. So it's 3.9 points. Someone else is 1.1. And then you have undecided is 2.7. So 2.7% of people are undecided. What we know is that Kamala Harris is actually still getting known to voters. This is a big deal, I think, in that I thought that she was actually a much higher known quantity, but it looks like she's more of a variable rather than an actual known value. And so because of that, a lot of voters are still getting to know her. And in a lot of ways, the election hasn't even started yet. I think the debate will probably be the first time it actually starts. A lot of people in real life, I think, don't give a crap about what's going on right now. They're not paying attention. I think Trump 2016 was such a spectacle. It kind of brought a lot of attention. And then 2020 was the panini. And so that was like really crazy attention as well. Now nobody really cares. People are watching sports or listening to Charlie XCX or whatever they're doing. So let's check this out. So this is with undecideds, but when we take into account leaners, what we can see is she leads by a 2-to-1 margin with leaners. So she has 1.8% of the leaners, and Donald Trump gets 0.9. So the undecided voters, she's winning 2-to-1 with the undecided voters. So this potentially could be a good thing in terms of, it could be a good thing or a bad thing. The good thing being that, hey, she's actually appealing to people who haven't made a decision yet, meaning there's a lot of room for growth for her. Also, if she's doing well with this sample of undecided voters, there's a possibility that there's some group of voters out there who are undecided who might be able to flip in favor of Kamala Harris in the future. That's another possibility, right? So those are potential bennies for Kamala Harris with her, doing well with these, undecided voters. The other thing would be, though, it could be a downside in terms of, maybe these undecided voters, because they're not decided, they're less likely to come out to vote. Potentially could be maybe a downside, but she's winning 2-to-1. And so when we take a look at the combined presidential vote here, we see that Kamala Harris gets 48% of the vote. Donald Trump gets 50.9% of the vote. So that is a 2.9 margin. It's our first one that we have here that's actually beneath 3 points. So we have the first poll so far that has her beneath 3 points. She's lower down than 3 points with leaners. Now, the only problem is here, once you obviously get in this situation, there's no undecideds left according to this poll number. There's 1.1 who are someone else specify. And when we look at this, will you definitely vote for your candidate, or is there at least a chance you could change your mind and vote for someone else? We have the definite number is 90.3. The chance that it could change my mind is 7. So that totals up to 97.3, and it looks like 2.7 missing from that number. So, that's 7%. Maybe you could convince those people to vote in favor of you would be the chance. Again, Kamala Harris, so shockingly to me, a very unknown quantity. So this could be a big deal. But she's already under 3, and the poll for Emerson last time had Trump +1, which is really bad. What ended up happening in the state of Texas, so back in 2016, you can see Trump ends up winning by about 9 points, but I'd say more so de facto 10 or 11 because Gary Johnson got 3.2%, which is a lot. And then in 2020, it is, in terms of a proportion, it almost gets halved, right? Because it goes from like 9, I would say a de facto win of like 10 to 11, because this is a head-to-head. That was not a head-to-head. And a head-to-head, I think Donald Trump does better than he did in 2016. So here in a head-to-head, it's only about 5.5. And so a huge, huge slicing, right? And so is Kamala Harris going to win Texas? The truth is probably not, highly unlikely, I think. However, there's a clear sort of monotonically decreasing sequence in terms of Trump leads, in terms of Trump victory margins. It keeps getting halved. So if she can get within 2 to 3%, if she can get below 3%, that would be really, really good for multiple reasons. One, it's a long-term project that seems to consistently be moving forward. There is evidence that population trends are continuing to grow for Texas, which is really, really good. I think 70% of the population lies in these sort of metro areas or whatever, like Austin and Dallas, Fort Worth area, etc. So it's a long-term project in terms of you can actually flip it blue in future elections, presidential elections. The other thing is down ballot races. So Ted Cruz is polling pretty poorly. I think he's up 4 in this recent poll here with Emerson. But 17% or 7%, I think, were undecided or something like that in the poll. So what we know is Ted Cruz is polling much, much weaker than Donald Trump is. He's barely able to crack 50 in almost any of the polls. So maybe you lose Texas by 2 to 3%, but Allred wins the seat against Ted Cruz, and you can hold the Senate. Kamala Harris comes in without winning Texas, but she holds the Senate, and you have the House, flip with the generic ballot polling. So, you can get through, even if you wanted to go through the, budget reconciliation, if you're down to just ignore what the parliamentarian says, you could do like one reconciliation bill with a fudge ton of stuff in it, and you'd be able to get a bunch through. Even if you don't want to break the filibuster, you could still do a lot, just even with that, right? So this is really huge, and so we can see that these counties flipped. Hayes County and Williamson flipped. We also saw some pretty large margin changes in counties like Denton County. So Denton County minus 20 for Hillary Clinton. Then it only ends up being minus 8, so it's like 12 points of ground gained. Collin County, another one too, 56.2 to 39.2, so about like a 17-point margin. And then here it's only 4. So, Dallas County going bluer as well. We can see in Dallas County it goes from 61.1 to about 65.1. Houston is lagging Harris County. They're kind of weak. I don't know why they're lagging so bad. The Harris County numbers are kind of weak, so that's kind of unfortunate. He got 56, and Harris last time was 54.2, so barely any gains. The Houston area appears to be kind of weak. The Austin area, Travis County, going from 66.3% all the way up to 71.7%. Huge shift because there's a lot of votes in there, so proportionally 5% of that many votes is a lot. Travis, Williamson, and Hayes both flipped blue. So these are the adjacent areas to Austin, right? So this was about 9 points. It barely flips. Hayes County also flipping. Another county that flips actually is Tarrant County. So Tarrant County, a Dallas adjacent area. This county, Trump wins by about 9 points. And what we can see is in Tarrant, Biden is actually up by 0.2 points. So he wins. So what I would say is the obvious strategy in terms of emerging victorious, if you're trying to win Texas, obviously you're going to go to Dallas and Travis and those areas with a ton of voters. Try to turn them out as much as you can, make them a larger proportion of the voting population. However, in terms of the sneak attacks, I would recommend sneak attack strategies too. So I would recommend going into Collin, trying to make that even further blue because it shifted so much. Denton as well, like these Dallas adjacent areas that are still red but they're turning blue, I would attack those areas. So go and do rallies in Denton and in Collin. Do voter registration drives in Denton. I think there's like a large college population there. Go over there. Continue to go for Williamson and Hayes and some of these other areas that are around here as well. I think I'm missing another one also. There's probably a fourth one I think that I'm missing. I can't remember which the fourth county was. I thought it was like a really good attack spot. But those are kind of your sort of sneak attacks you can do where instead of just going after the blue areas, which you have to go for the blue areas, go for those red areas as well. And so ultimately what is probably going to end up happening with this is with these numbers, with Kamala Harris being down less than 3 points, she's already only down 2.1 or 2.9 when you take into account the leaners. Also, I wanted to mention this as well. When you actually look at like the party affiliation of what their numbers are, so in terms of the party affiliation, so if we take a look here at the party affiliation, because they have like the party affiliation numbers, You can see party affiliation. They have Democrat 32.5, Republican 40.7. So it's about +8 Republican. The previous 2020 Emerson poll that was bad, that was only +1 for Trump, they had, I think, a +2 Democrat sample. This is +8. This is +8, which, or I don't know if it was +2 I can't remember what the exact margin was. I forgot. That might have been Florida, actually. But or it might have been +5 Republican, I think, actually. So what might end up happening, hopefully, is they're adjusting for, I think, those sample sizes that were like too much in favor of Democrats and not enough in favor of the Republicans. My hope is, hopefully, they actually overestimate the Republican in the sample size, and then it ends up being a surprise booster shot for, Kamala Harris. Hopefully, is what's going to happen. Hopefully, they over-adjust. We know Texas is still growing in terms of blues moving into Texas, so there should be a really good situation where hopefully there ends up being a shock boost. And also, it indicates to me this poll is much higher likelihood to actually being correct because they're adjusting for the sample sizes from 2020. So higher chance of this poll being correct. We can hope and pray for an overestimation of the Republicans and an underestimation of the Democrats. They're still undecided voters. She's still undecided. And if it gets within 2 to 3 points, you're now in a scenario where it's in striking distance, I would say, for 2032. I would say you want to retain S sub n, let S sub n be the sequence where it's like, the election results since 2016, S 2016, S 2020, S 2024. Keep it monotonically decreasing. Get it to 2 to 3 this time around. If you could get beneath 3, that would be really sick. If you get beneath 2, it's Armageddon, right? And then you hope that in 2028, I think you want to get less than 1.5, between 0.5 and 1.5, and then hopefully by 2032 you can actually flip the state. Now this would require actual movement along the lines of Californians and other blue people still moving over. I think the Mexican theorem was a failure. The Mexican theorem was that, hey, Mexicans are going to move into Texas, going to turn it blue. Colossal failure. Very unreliable in the state of Texas, if not god-awful. So Biden gets 59, which is his national average. The concern was Clinton got -5 compared to her average. She got average Hispanic vote of 66 nationally. She's down 5. Biden matched his number, so I hope there's not a sexist vote. That would be really unfortunate. But Trump randomly surges 6 points with Hispanic voters. So it's 59-40, which is trash. That's garbage. But if you're Kamala, I would focus on how do you pull Hispanic voters away from Trump? Because he way overperformed his poll numbers. A lot of that is probably the 6-point surge that they didn't see happening with Hispanic voters. How do you pull them away? You don't need to get them to vote for you because it actually went down by 2 for Biden, but it went up by 6 for Trump. How do you get those Hispanic voters not to vote for Trump? And then you focus on pulling out the blue voters because, that's just disgraceful. 40% of Hispanic voters voting for Trump is disgusting. It's unbelievable. Horrible, unfathomable. If they voted like black voters did, where it's like 92-8, or if it's even like Asians where it's 72-25 or whatever, it would be so much better. So 75-25, whatever. So the Mexican theorem has failed, but what it looks like is the migration from blue areas is what's doing this because we're able to see those areas near Austin are flipping, right? They're flipping. The areas for Travis County, and they're growing, and those areas are flipping, the Austin adjacent areas. San Antonio and Houston areas lagging. Dallas making big increases. The Dallas County going up 61.1 to 65 is pretty solid. The Houston area only went up less than 2 points, which is super lame. So that's what it looks like is going on in Texas, and that's what I think is going to end up happening.